Hey, it's Tara Lee here. I'm a camel behaviourist, wellness and energy expert, and this is feeding time, and I want to show you today what I'm actually feeding my camels supplement wise. A lot of people just assume that you can domesticate camels really quite easily. They don't think about where the camel has come from, aka the desert environment, what that camel has been eating in the desert, and what is in the plants and shrubs that they have been eating. In your desert plants, you've got so many more minerals and in them compared to the grasses for camels. Obviously, I'm speaking specifically for camels here. So in a normal natural environment for a camel, they'd be foraging for food and they'd never eat the same thing constantly unless that was the only thing that they could eat. So they might have a little bit of this bush and a little bit of that shrub and then maybe a tree up there, and they've got such a variety in their diet. And it's a real funny thing with camels because often domestic camels can get, in quotes, bored, and it's often because of the lack of variety that's in their diet, because camels are designed to walk long distances, to forage for food, to search for water, and all of those things. That's why I wanted to cover minerals today, and I hope that short introduction to minerals does kind of give you an understanding that camels 100% need minerals. If you don't give your domestic camel minerals, you're setting your camel up for health failure. The other funny thing with camels and their health is if they get unhealthy, they're usually unhealthy for a very long time until they show symptoms. Why, you might ask? Because they're a survival animal. It's the survivors of the fittest out there in the desert. So they can't show any weaknesses, or they'll be attacked by somebody else in the herd or some wild animal sort of thing. So they don't show their symptoms straight away when they're unwell, unlike other more commonly domesticated animals sort of thing. So camels need supplements. We've covered that a little bit here. I do have a full camel vet talk on this actually, which I'll leave the links here. And you can have a look at those videos too to get a better understanding on what camels need. Just to be short about it is that you can't just get a camel, put it in a pastoral paddock like this and expect it to thrive. It's not going to. And the reason I know that is because I'm the person that gets the questions and gets the calls about my camel's sick all of a sudden, and I'm like, no, it's not all of a sudden. It's been sick for a very long time. It's just that you've only just noticed the symptoms now because of this survival instinct that the camels have. So my camels here are just feeding on their salt, and they got a mineral mix in here that I've just done. And I want to show you exactly what I feed the camels in, I want to show you exactly what I feed my minerals in, which is this blue bin here, and what I feed the salt in, which is like an old recycled tyre bin down here. How to stop the camels from tipping over these bins constantly, because that's a thing. They're big animals, they're a bit kind of clumsy, and especially with buckets and stuff, they love like throwing that stuff around. It's really annoying trying to find buckets in the paddock, and then you get your broken buckets and all the things. So I want to show you, after years and years of experience, the most practical way to feed camels their salt and to feed them their mineral mix. And I'm going to go through what kind of salt that I use. Keyword, the kind of salt I use, which is absolutely integral to their health, and I'll explain that a little bit later on, and the kind of mineral mix that I use, what minerals are in the mineral mix and how I get them. So stay tuned for that, and of course you'll see the camel's actual feeding time, which is going to have a lot of cute lips, camel lips, because they're so cute and they do really enjoy their mineral times. So let's get stuck into it. We're in the, with my mineral bins here. I have got the minerals in here, and like the mixed minerals, and then I've got the salt in this one over here. You're probably wondering what type of salt she uses and what type of minerals. All of that I'm going to cover. So keep watching, because, and then of course you're going to see the camels enjoy their minerals. They haven't had their minerals for a little while, and that's okay, because they will supplement until they have done, and then you know, I'll either refill straight away if it looks like they haven't had enough, or I'll just leave it a week maybe. Like I find with animal husbandry, a lot of it has to do with just intuition, knowing your animals. I mean, you've got your science, you've got your common sense, you've got all those things, but a lot of it is intuition as well, as you would know as an animal person. So let's take a look at the minerals I've got, and I'll show you the brands as well. Take note, I am in Australia, so these are the brands that I can get locally in my local town. And you just do the best you can with what you've got in your area. So starting off with, we've got the salt that I use for the camels. It is literally just swimming pool salt. It is non-chlorinated, it's got no other chemicals or anything in it. It is just swimming pool salt. And this is what it looks like. Well, actually, this is not what it looks like. I had to buy this one. I had to buy this one, like a really fine one, because that's all I could get for many, many months, supply issues. But I'll show you what I prefer to give my camels, and I will give them that today when I find some scissors. So the camels really enjoy the chewing factor of the salt. Like with this, the finer one, they can lick up the salt, and that's fine. But I like that they can really, because camels require a lot of salt in their diet. It would take lots and lots of licks to get their salt needs from that. But again, a different story when you give them this, what they call loose salt, or salt chunks, or whatever. Now, before we continue, if you're one of those people like, well, I have salt blocks for my camels, that would be fine. It's not okay for camels, and here's the reason why. Camels, well, I just explained before, camels need a lot of salt in their diet, and to get there, and they can eat up to 1 kilogram of salt a day if they're missing that in their diet, if they're missing the salt in their diet. And from that, if you give them the salt blocks, they don't actually have long enough tongues to lick the salt to get all their nutritional needs from the salt. So what do? They chew the salt. If you continually feed your camels salt blocks over the years, they will actually wear down their teeth a lot quicker. They're going to have eating issues, and they're going to die a lot younger. So stick to the loose salt. It is the best option, and if they're share housing with other animals like cows and horses and things like that, horses and cows will eat salt like this too, so it's absolutely fine. I've tried this myself. I've had horses in the paddock and donkeys and all sorts of things with my camels, and it works quite fine. So this is the salt that is absolutely ideal to give the camels. It's loose, delicious salt. Look. It's salty. I love salt, so it's not a problem for me. You're like, who's this crazy camel lady licking salt? It is just salt from the earth that is really salty. So now we know that I've had my salt intake for the day. I'm going to pour this into here so that I can scoop it out easy enough and put it in separate, the minerals in a bucket and the salt in a bucket. We'll feed the camels very, very soon. I love feeding camels because they obviously get a lot of enjoyment out of it too. So let's do this. Very funky. I need a hammer or something. So there it is, the salt for camels, not for humans. Well, obviously I'm not dead yet, so it's okay, it's just salt. But I'm pretty sure I've had my salt intake for the day. Let me show you the minerals. So in this bin, we have the mineral mix for the camels. What is in the mineral mix? I've got copper sulfate, don't worry, not high doses, very low doses. And to counteract the copper sulfate, I've got dolomite, which is calcium and phosphorus together. Amongst that as well, let me get a handful. So it's very, very fine, as you can see. So the copper sulfate, that's the blue part. There's dolomite in there, which counteracts, the poisonous effect that copper sulfate can have, but it can have the healthy effect if you use a dolomite with it. Science stuff that I probably don't understand and can't explain properly. And then so we've got the dolomite, the copper sulfate, yellow sulfate, also some seaweed in that as well, some urea-free seaweed. And this is the mineral mix for camels. I buy them all in individual bags. So the copper sulfate, I buy like everything. I have to mix all this together. Very dusty work. And of course there's a recipe to this. You can't just buy random amounts of the things, because if you do that, then you're sort of risking that dangerous point with the copper sulfate and things like that. I have the full recipe and how much you need of each mineral in my camel husbandry ebook. Camel husbandry ebook covers this recipe, how to feed out the salt as well, and a lot of other camel husbandry stuff that every camel owner or wannabe camel owner should actually learn. So this is pre-prepared, ready to go. I'm going to put these two in separate buckets. So if you mix it, the salt is just too wet to mix with this mineral mix. That's why you feed them out separately. As soon as this gets wet, it's no good anymore. Chuck it out, it's no good. The copper has dissolved, all the other minerals have probably dissolved too. So you might be wondering all the benefits of this sort of mineral mix. I go into detail in my camel husbandry ebook. It's nice to be told like do this and do that with camels, but it's even better when you know why, because then you're going to be consistent at it, and then every time you feed it out you know that this is doing your camels good. So that's why I think it's really important to explain that. I spent hours and weeks and months just writing up this ebook. It's over years and years of experience, so you can get a lot of value from that, and you can follow the links below here or wherever you're watching this. There'll be links to that somewhere. So let me grab some buckets and we can start feeding this out. Okay. This one's open. And if you're thinking, how much do I give my camel? I've got 9 camels, so I'm going to give probably 2 of these big scoops, because I got a lot of camels. And if I find they eat it within a few hours, I'll be refilling it because somebody didn't get what they needed, you know. There can be greedy ones, that's for sure. But if you've got 1 or 2 camels, I would start with like a little bit like that, you know, and just see how it goes. Now again, most camels don't eat this stuff straight away. They look at the bin and go, what is this? I'm not eating it. It has nothing, no good taste about it or whatsoever. There's a way to introduce the minerals. If you find your camels aren't eating the minerals, including the salt, most camels will eat salt though, I will say that. But if you find they're not eating the mineral mix, again, in my camel husbandry ebook, I cover like how you can introduce your camels to these minerals, and then they realize that they need that for their body. Once you start putting it, like for example in their feed, there's lots of different ways to do it, and then you can leave it out in your mineral buckets and things like that, and they will have it at lib, you know, when they know that they need it. So you know, I think as a society we overthink things. Like I think even for us humans, like we expect someone else to tell us what we need in our bodies, but animals are the most intuitive things on the planet, so they know their nutritional needs. If it's available to them, they will have it. So trust that factor. But again, if you find your camel is not touching the minerals at all, they need that introduction to the minerals, which I cover in my camel husbandry ebook. Alright, so that's some minerals. Now I'm going to do, it's very dusty as you can see, and some salt. They love, like I'll probably put a good 4 scoops in here. Can't remember, it's probably been a couple. One of the camels can hear me in here. She's just looking at me. She's very, very cute. She's like, I'm sure this woman's coming to feed me. Now let's go give this to the camels in their mineral bins. First, let's have a look at the salt bin that we've got here. We've also got Jasper. He's lovely. So I just use these old tyre, they're not like recycled tyres, as a tyre bin. I just use these. They're heavy, they're still not heavy enough that the camel can't throw it around. But it's better than a bucket. Like a bucket they will throw around, they will stomp on it, and they will wreck it like almost instantly. They just like playing with things like that. Not that camels love toys, that's a whole other subject, but they just, you know, most camels They just muck around with it. It might be a textural thing, it might be a sensory thing that they just enjoy doing it. So to avoid the salt getting overly wet, I'm going to drill some holes in the bottom of this. It's not overly rainy here at the moment, it's summertime, so the salt's quite fine out there. And to be honest, the camels kind of eat it quick enough, and I don't put too much salt in it, so that, you know, it does sort of get dissolved really quickly if it got filled with water. I'm going to drill some holes in this so that we're ready to put some natural salt in, and then we'll get on to the mineral bin. Now for those of you wondering what size drill bit she's using, I have no idea. It's about that size. It's not a big enough drill bit that the salt is going to get stuck in the holes, because I use loose salt. So yeah, they're tiny holes. I'll show you in a sec when I move the camera. I'll just finish these holes. So as you can see, randomly placed holes. There was no pattern to it. Very non-pattern-ish. So yeah, that is going to be the salt bin, and I'm just going to put that on the other side of the fence there. So hold that was its spot, so we can fill it with salt. So another thing you can do to avoid the whole camels throwing the tyre feeder around or anything, put some bricks at the bottom. It won't prevent it, but it'll certainly prevent any lost tyre feeders, that's for sure. So that was a little trick just I learned through experience, like you do, so you can shortcut your trauma of not finding feed bins, spending the money on feed bins and then not being able to find them, and just pop some bricks at the bottom. The other part is that I've got holes. I know it says emus on the back. It was actually for emus at one stage. Weird story. It's got holes at the back that I'm going to put wire through, so when the camels do eat out of it, they kind of get a bit aggressive with their, I don't even know if aggressive is the right word. They get a bit like hectic with their mineral eating, and they move around the barrel a lot. So having wire, and honestly I've tried rope, I've tried baling twine, and it just breaks really quickly. So wire is really the best option when it comes to tying it to a post. So let me show you how I've done that setup, so the minerals stay best freshest for longest, and also this tub does not go flying down the paddock and the camels start kicking it around, sometimes even sitting on it. So I've cut some lines of wire. Don't ask me how thick, it's just something I found lying around. It's pretty thick wire, and I'm going to put it through the back of the holes on the mineral bin, as I call it, and then we can attach it to the post. So just so it's clear, I'm going to feed the wire through those holes. You can see I've made like 4 holes there. I'm going to feed 2 strands of wire through there so we can get that on the post to avoid camels kicking it over. So I've got my wire fed through here. As you can see, it's ready to go, and I'm going to attach it probably to that post over there. I'm trying to look for the flattest ground possible. I've drilled my holes in the bottom so that if the minerals get wet, the water can drain out. You have to dispose of the minerals if they do get wet, because they end up being obsolete, then they don't have the same effect, but at least you're not got claggy minerals in the base there. any of the loose bits, so you know, to avoid injury mostly on my part because I'm on this side of the fence and the camel's on that side. And we can get onto the minerals. Make sure you pick up the scraps because that can go straight through a camel's foot. Remember, they have pads, not hooves. That would probably go through a hoof as well. So now that our 2 feed bins, we've got the mineral bin over here and we've got the tire feeder here, they're ready. This one's going to have salt in it, this one's going to have the additional minerals in it. Camels being in a domestic environment 100% need some mineral supplementation because they're out in the desert and the wild and where they originate from. They had all the amazing food, the medicinal food that they would feed themselves out in the wild. So we have to justify, or we have to supplement that as camel owners to make sure they're getting everything that they need to avoid, because the key word is avoid, future health issues for the camel. It's easier to prevent it than treat the symptom. I'm so stoked that you've watched this video all about how to supplement a camel's diet in a domestic environment. And as a thanks to your commitment to learning more about camels, I would love to gift you my free, what's normally not free, but free for you today, is a camel mineral mix download where you'll see exactly the camel mineral mix recipe that I use, the proportions to feed out, how to feed it out, and so many more little bonuses that you just don't want to miss out if you're a camel owner or a potential new camel owner. Head over to my website camelchannel.com and click on the shop section in the menu bar and scroll down to camel freebies, and that's where you'll find the camel mineral mix free download. Just enter your name and your email address and you'll get it instantly into your email inbox. Thank you so much for being here and watching and learning more about camels.